Hello and welcome to episode 10 of The Business of the Starving Artist with Hayden Woods, where it's our business to get you from being a starving artist to at least a surviving artist. And today, we're going to be doing something a little bit differently. As you can tell by the title of this episode, Reddit Roundup number 1, I'm going to be exploring at least at the moment, 5 different subreddits to look for questions for future episodes. I've tried recording this one multiple times, so I already have about 7 different topics that I wrote out, and that might turn into some more, but we're going to go through the following Reddits. We're going to be going through the self-employed, the entrepreneur, the small business, the business, and the podcasting, because I would like to find some more questions related to trying to figure out how to expand this podcast beyond just what I'm doing right now. So we're going to go through each subreddit. We're going to find some questions, whether or not, if I can answer them, I'll answer them here. If it's going to become another episode, it'll be another episode, and then everything else we'll just kind of scroll past as we can. As an extra disclaimer, I'm going to do my best to avoid a lot of tax and financial related questions, just because whatever worked for me isn't necessarily going to work for them, or maybe there's something that I would get wrong, and I don't want to have that on my conscience. So this first one is in the Reddit /self-employed. I sorted them all by new. This one comes to us 3 hours ago. When and how to announce pregnancy as an independent contractor. And obviously, I don't have the, how do I want to say this? I don't have the capability to be pregnant being a man. So think I'm only going to say you should at least make it known as soon as possible that there's a chance that you will need to take X amount of time off for this pregnancy. Just so that everyone is prepared. This is mostly just to lead into, if something is coming up, whether good or bad, you need to let people know so that they can make plans around it. Like right now we're in the middle of, or by the time this, actually, since I'm recording in the middle of my break today, I let everyone know at the beginning of December that there was going to be a 2-week break around Christmas and New Year's. As we approach summer, I'll make the announcement on whether or who wants to stay and who's going to drop for the summer. I usually make it where if you're leaving for the summer, your spot is at least guaranteed when you come back. At the moment, I don't have anyone putting like deposits down on it. That might be something I'll probably have new students start doing, just because a lot of the students I currently have been long-term, so I don't have to worry about them as much. And a lot of those longer-term students also tend to stay throughout the whole year. So just alert them as soon as you can. I should also mention that these subreddits will have different regions. So that one was the US and Canada. The next one that's on screen is from the UK. They have businesses imposing their terms on self-employed contractors. And this is where you just make sure you have a contract in place for anything, just so that you're following the contract that you're provided, not necessarily the one that they're trying to do. So, when should I start my business? 3 days ago, this question was asked, and I would just say as soon as you can. Don't wait. The longer you wait, the harder it is to actually get it off the ground. Again, this podcast I think I've had in my mind for about 6 months now, but I've only finally started to get around to recording it. So, US, best way to pay shared bills. Let's view the full post. I'm recently self-employed. I started my own single-member LLC and will be working from my home with a dedicated office space, like I have. Since things can be written off on taxes like utilities, internet, phone, etc., how do others in my situation pay for bills? Okay. I'm going to avoid this one again, just because it's different for everyone, and this is from Texas. Do I pay all that stuff from my personal account and then reimburse a portion of it from my business account? I mean, in my case, I have separate accounts for all the housing expenses, and that goes back to the butchered credit episode where I didn't want another 2.5 grand just ripped out of my bank account at that time. Now, since then, obviously, if you saw that episode, I am past that. But I kept that account just because it's nice to have it separate from my actual the money outside of housing. So let's see. Looking for advice. I'm in full time employed and I would like to work as second or and I would like to work as a self-employed in a second job. Does anyone have any advice or experience on doing this? Now I did the same thing starting out just because it was harder. You start off with it just being like the side thing, which is something I didn't do. I started thinking that it was just going to be boom, there's my studio built right away, and that was not the case. So start small, whatever the job is, because they don't specify. Their username kind of hopefully is very telling of what they do for a living. I'm not even going to say it. So if you're watching it, great. If not, don't worry about it. Whatever your second job is going to be, try to tailor it around that time until there's such a point that if you want to make it your full time and then have your current full time be less than, start to phase the rules out. Continuing on, client asking for more than contracted. He's now asking me to write scripts for each video. I had somebody email me because I put up a bunch of basic beginner exercises for piano, and they wanted work to be done. And the work that they wanted to be done was for a college paper, actually, for somebody out of the country. And that, I believe, was a language barrier in my mind, like not being able to specify exactly what it is that they wanted, because there'd be a point where I would write something, then they would want it changed. And obviously, if you want changes, that's fine. But then they kind of the same situation where they started asking for more and more. I'm just like, that's not what we agreed to. And eventually I just dropped them and I gave them back their money just because I wasn't going to deal with it. I quit contacting them because it got to a point where they were emailing every like 20 to 30 minutes. And it was just, it got to a point where they're like, well, why is it taking so long? I could have it done in this time. And that's usually the point where you're just like, no, don't worry about it. If you really think you could have gotten it done faster, then you would have just done it yourself. But that is what it is. We're going to scroll past all the scamming things. There's some more UK stuff. Thinking of quitting being self-employed and getting a job again. This one is going to become its own episode. It's written on my sticky notes. It's the top one, but I don't think it's going to be produced right away, called Self-Employment Burnout. Now, to shorten it for the time being, I've been burned out on college and I've been burned out on different careers because, again, I was a cook / kitchen manager at one point in my life, and glad I got out of it when I did. But I can understand that kind of burnout. Just registered my business and I'm struggling to understand how to do my outgoings for 2 freelance workers. This is in the UK, but let's see. My company got paid for a job and I'm logging all my incomes and outgoings. In the US, we usually have to file, I believe is it a W-9? Let's look. W-9 form. Yeah. So again, visual people, you'll see this, but for my audio listeners, you fill out a W-9. I've had to fill out these quite a bit as a contracted person, whether it's for the musical or for something involved with college. You have to fill this out because they usually This is usually mostly for the people requesting it. You, as the employer, would keep it on hand just so that you show that you paid them. And then once you get the tax time, you would write down that you paid out X amount in contractor work or freelance work. Any advice on becoming a solo self-employed house cleaner? Now, I'm going to answer this one a little bit more in detail because my sister does this for a living. We're going to look at the first comment that somebody put and kind of elaborate on it because I thought this one was good the several times I tried recording beforehand. Number one, make sure you clean to professional standard in both finish and efficiency. Basically, this is a good way to say if you have the experience or if you've done this before, you should be able to pull it off on your own. Now, my sister worked for a cleaning company. I worked for the same cleaning company when I was starting my business, and it wasn't taking off quite the way I was expecting it to. But at the very least, we understand what is necessary to make that happen. And it's not my profession by any means. And actually, even my dad, at one point when we were kids, that was his self-employment work, was for cleaning. So it kind of runs in the family, I guess. Look at local competition for prices, service areas, and terms. This goes all the way back to finding your value. I believe it's episode 2. Just making sure that you know what the going rate is in your area. If you want to be a little competitive, that's fine, but don't price yourself short to the point where you're not making anything. Get insurance. This is something more for house cleaning, for anything where you are like working on other things. Like for me, I'm just showing up to a house to play music, to teach, and then leave. I'm not there to do laundry and scrub counters and stuff like that, which if you use the wrong chemicals can result in damaging all that. And then you have to replace it, which then eats at your profit margin, or you might lose money, or you might lose a customer. So for anything like this kind of work, yes, you would need to get insurance. Get a good logo and website. Online presence means a lot. I usually use Facebook groups. I do have my website, but at the time of this recording, it has not been updated in a while, and I'm actually thinking of doing an overhaul on the design just because, again, too many animations. It just needs to be straightforward. Plus, I'd like the schematic to be more tailored to what I'm doing anyway. So, and then be friendly, be personable, because you have to be the one as a self-employed person. You're also the face. You're also the presence that helps associate what you do to everyone. In the UK, how to support a self-employed partner. Again, this is another one that's going to become its own episode, I think, dealing with where is it? Being married to self-employed, just kind of here's what you to expect from your partner when they're working, especially as a self-employed, because there are some things that are great, there are some things that are not. In this particular post, they're talking about how when the business is not doing as well, this self-employed person's mental health really takes a hit, which obviously when you're working for yourself, you're the one in charge of a lot. So you have to be, you have to be very careful of what it is, or if you can handle it mentally. And I think past this is just a lot of the same stuff. Yep. So, there's a question about gas receipts and mileage. The short answer is you always have to keep mileage. You don't get to not keep mileage if you want to take a mileage deduction. So just log it. I'm currently catching up on the last month of my mileage log just because it got away from me. So let's move on to the entrepreneur subreddit, and we're going to just kind of scroll through and see what can show up in here, if anything. And if there's not anything, I'll probably just cut it out and state so. User OK Tart says, trying to get testimonials. I used to tutor extensively and trying to create a course to sell for a subject, so I'm trying to give a free class where I give an overview. This class will be remote and advertising through Craigslist. I believe after those, like the strategies given, feel like they learned something. However, I'm getting very little response. Okay. So this is about feedback, and I tried this at the 3-year mark, where I gathered feedback. I did it with physical paper, things to write out and have them fold up, but unfortunately, I didn't get as much as I wanted to for my feedback. I might have to do it again, and I might have to develop a form, like a Google form, that I can send people to online to just fill it out themselves, just so that I know what's working and what isn't, because I would like to keep shaping what I am doing around what works versus what doesn't. For example, all of my students have notebooks right now just because I have to be able to keep track of what I'm doing, as well as keep track of the progress that each of these students is making. Okay. User Kid Beanie says, failed. Cool. Keep going. I failed my first fight. Bad. Skill, C++ programmer. How I failed. I spent too little time looking for the next gig. I started far too late to line up the next gig. I had no idea how to plan or talk to people about scheduling. Okay. So this is like what happens if something doesn't work. And again, I go back to the beginning of my business where it was much slower than I thought, and I needed to figure out something else, which included like taking on a second job, or, finding ways to expand on your horizons. And if those don't work, you go do something else. Again, this podcast is going to be a year long, regardless of whether it takes off or not. And then I'll have a year's worth of info to start compiling in organizing a little bit more coherently to make a book about it to put up on the website or on Amazon, probably, because it's easy to put a book on there. I know it's not going to be there to make money. It's there just to get information out there. We're going to move past the entrepreneur one because this one's really hard to read sometimes. It's mostly about looking for ideas. Okay. We are moving on to the small business Reddit, and I see a lot of questions about, let's see. Yeah, it looks like it's just a lot of questions about various businesses. Okay. My store was robbed last night. They took the whole safe amount, but also my employees' tips for the week. What we can do about the tips? And he said nothing. Ooh, that sucks. Let's see. I think one trend a lot of entrepreneurs aren't realizing is how the point of sale has evolved in the last couple of years. The point of sale is in the content now, meaning earlier it was the retail shop where the sale of a new product used to happen. Now it's the content where the new product or services get introduced by the consumer. Basically, it's just we've evolved how we consume either a product or a service. And right now it is mostly just online. So there's that. Is there anyone in the group who has recently sold their business and willing to chat? Interested in knowing the process that you went through? I can't answer that because I don't really plan on selling my business at the moment. Let's see. Swag vendors. Oh, like merchandising. I don't have anything yet for merchandising, but I've had an idea. And the couple of families I've talked to about pitching this idea received it very well. I'm thinking about because I go to every house, taking like pet pictures of all the families that would be willing to within my studio and compiling them into like a pets of calendar. So the pets of Hayden Woods-Music. And this would be something where I would have to start producing it in like June or July. Actually, I probably would even need to start taking pictures sooner so that I can catch like winter month for pets. and just kind of see what happens from there. Again, this would be like a trial run where I print off a certain amount of calendars. I would say everyone who participates in that for sure gets a calendar. Anyone who doesn't like participate but would still like one that's in my studio would get a discount, and then those who would like one of those calendars could pay for it. And I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to do that. So yeah, that's kind of a sneaky little thought. Hard being the owner. Again, when you're self-employed, you're the owner. Let's see. Advertising. Where's the best place to buy? I'm going to say it would be nice to do on or in person, like small business areas, but I also know that there's a lot of there are a lot of online options. The one I usually use for most of my stuff is Vistaprint, just because I can kind of be in control of designing it myself, and they've been consistent, at least for me. So, and they offer plenty of things. Like I have sign out front of my house. I have car magnets. I've bought at one point a couple jackets that have my initials on it. It would be nice if I could get a couple more coats that have the logo of the business on it. Although I am also considering a rebrand, like a redesign of the logo to something a little more simple. We'll see. So, set up an LLC, but operating as a sole trader as income, not brilliant. Okay. This is going to become its own episode on sole proprietorship versus an LLC. And for me, I'm thinking the only way I would do that is if I have to hire another teacher. That would really be the only reason I would need to transform from a sole prop into an LLC. But that'll be its own episode. All right, we're going to go to the regular business Reddit now. So we're just going to look and see. Square versus Venmo. I use Venmo. I'm sure either one is fine. Venmo, for services, they charge a fee. And that's mostly up to the clients how they decide. At least in my case, that's been up to the client to decide how they were going to pay, whether mark it as a service or not. Regardless of whether it is a service or not, it is logged and it is recorded so that come tax time, I know how much I've made from all those. So, although that is a good way to do that. How to make a shell company in the Cayman Islands. I really don't need to do that. That'd be terrible. If you've had coaching, how did you seek it out? Find out about it. Again, I guess this podcast is kind of my way of being the coach, just because I kind of hardlined it my own way, and it hurt obviously at the beginning, but now that I'm in a place where I feel better and I'm doing a lot better, I would recommend anyone that wants to go in my line of work to reach out so that we can discuss. I've thought about doing a coaching program. It's like it's one of the courses on the current website that I just want to get rid of, and might just say, here's how much it's going to cost to coach, which wouldn't be that much. I think I would charge maybe the same amount that I would charge for a half hour or full hour lesson, and just keep it at that. So, we'll see. Can you give me an ideas for business? I mean, you should really lean into what it is that you're good at. So again, I teach music because I do music. I went to school for music. A rule book. Having a book to refer back to whenever you face a decision, blah, 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 is crucial to your success. If this, then that structure. The way I'm reading that is, if I have a contract, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have on my website the document that states everything on what it is to expect from my lessons. So that'll come when I rebuild the website. Not too much on this one either. So, and it looks like we're about 24, 25 minutes. So we're going to go to Reddit/podcasting, just because I'm looking to figure out ways to kind of, or questions that I should be thinking about as I'm building on this podcast. So let's go through. Can I add chapter markers if I'm using Internet Archive to host my podcast? I have no idea what that means. I guess for context, obviously I'm on YouTube for the visual folks. I'm on Spotify for audio only, and I'm kind of just leaving that as is. I see a lot of equipment things, audio editing course suggestions. I try not to edit too much on these. It's mostly just normalize it so that the voice comes through, and then cut any major bumps. So I'm sure you've seen a couple have happened, or a couple spots happen where I've had to make a hard cut, which I usually haven't done yet. Okay. Let's see. How do podcasts get discovered? I mean, you have to put it out there. I try to post once a week. I don't have anyone that I would be a guest on for other podcasts, but I do have some ideas for people that could come onto this one, and then therefore would share from there. Create such amazing and broadly interesting content that word of mouth will overcome enormous inertia. Change your expected growth timelines from days, months to multiple years. Be lucky. Be lucky is the big one. I think that would be the first thing I would put in my head is be lucky, because if you don't, it's a matter of chance when it's online, because I'm pretty sure there's over 1 million podcasts at this point to choose from. So if you've chosen mine, thank you, and definitely spread the word. But you do have to be lucky in order to make this thing work long term. Be present on all social media, even the ridiculous one. Post links and stuff. Add yourself to Spotify, Apple, wherever you can. I need to look at what Apple looks like, if you have to pay for it or not. For right now, I'm preferring to just keep it free by doing Spotify and YouTube and just sharing from there. If there comes a point where it does make money, then yes, I would move to have it on Apple Podcasts, and I would probably just bulk upload one a day or one every other day until I catch up to the current episode, whenever that is, on YouTube and Spotify. Right now, my schedule is Friday gets the YouTube upload and Saturday gets the Spotify, just because I haven't dealt with how to separate them within my specific editing program, which I believe is just Movie Studio Platinum 13, which is really technologically old, but it's the video editor I have and it works. So why not? Let's see. Maybe I need to get on to some like podcasting Facebook groups, or like if I look on here, I think they have like a weekly, let me go back to the top, sort by hot. There should be like a weekly episode thread, December 28th. Receive and give feedback on your podcast. What improvement? Let's see. Yeah, so somebody has their podcast. I have some notes. Season 9, episode 8 of Rebel Moon. They're just looking to... this is just a way to look for feedback on things you can do better or things that are working. This one might get submitted to that. We'll see what happens. There we go. Okay, let's go back to the new, see if we can find a couple more questions, and then I will probably call it from there. Where'd it go? There's the last question. Okay. Social media page for podcasts. Right now, I think I'm just going to run it through my own page. So Hayden Woods, trombonist, composer, instructor. Just do it that way. Might just rebrand it to just say Hayden Woods-Music, just to keep it simpler. There's that weekly feedback one. How should I streamline the removal of mouth clicks from finished live streams and prevent them in future live streams? I can't help you there. I mostly just record at a beginning, at an end. I'm playing with a note card or sticky notepad, which if you're hearing that clicking, whoops, I should put that away. Let's see. GarageBand to record audio. I don't use that. I'm using OBS to capture video and audio at the same time. Let's see. Which platform to use? I already said what that was. Again, Spotify and YouTube. Let's see. Ambassador ads are unavailable. Was going to buy a Blue Yeti. I bought all my equipment during the pandemic. Hooray for small business grants and unemployment. So I was fortunate in that one. Let's see. A sound card for a computer would be nice, but I'm just using my ancient PC that I built to make this work. Editors, how much do you figure out how to charge? It just depends. I guess when I do a recording based contract, I usually charge the same amount of time. So if it's audio only, I'm charging the 30 half hour, 60 full hour. If I have to do video and audio, which includes kind of what I'm doing right now with video editing, or having, in the case of going somewhere, it'd be just a separate camera and then having to do the sync and all that stuff. Then I would charge more just because it takes a lot more to actually make that work. So let's see. Question ideas for a music podcast. Okay. I think, again, we're at the half hour mark. I think this is going to be a good place to stop for now. I'm going to try to do this every 10 episodes, so that should give us about 2.5 months to let new questions kind of roll in or see if there's any repeats. Some other episodes that I've come across that are going to become their own episodes are about, let's see, I already talked about self-employment on burnout. I have one that's going to be entitled Explain It to the Boomers, which is basically just like, how do you deal with explaining what you do to someone who's older, who maybe doesn't understand how it is that you're making a living. I already talked about the sole prop versus LLC. Housing on a self-employment income is going to be another one because, as I've discovered, they go off of your net after all of your expenses income. So kind of figure out how to navigate that. Marketing without burnout. Kind of the same thing as self-employment burnout. Online scheduling. It's probably going to be around when I start rebuilding my website, and being married to self-employment we already talked about. So with all of that said, thank you for joining us on this very different episode of The Business of the Starving Artist. As we can remember, and as I try to figure out and remember how to mirror myself, the Venmo tip jar is on the screen or in the description. Any little bit that would help. It mostly goes to gas so that we can keep driving to every single lesson. Otherwise, thanks, and until next time.